I just have a project, and like one of you had so graciously mentioned, the first thing I should do when I get a project is I should look through all the files in the project to understand how that project or how that app is put together, how the files connect, and how it all works essentially, before I sort of like write code or do anything. Does that make sense? Like if you were to like look at some of your other friends' Mod 1 project, could you immediately go in there and start writing code? You look at it, you're like, great, I need this method, boom, def, cool method, end, do something? Or do you have to like kind of understand how everything is like connected first? Right? So let's do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to like soft zoom a little bit just so you can kind of see. But first thing is I'm looking at like this framework, right? Sinatra. The way it works is it has this MVC-like architecture. We're going to dive into that here in a little bit, right? So the first thing I have is something called adapters. This is not part of normal Sinatra. This is just what I've been using to seed the database. So I just have a module. Oops. I just have a module. Inside there's a class. There's some sort of base URL that I'm going to make a request to. I have add a reader for author. I'm going to initialize this new author. And all I'm going to do is run a method called author sanitizer. And it's going to take in that author object. I have something called fetch books. And all it's really doing is I'm running a REST client, right? You've all seen this before, right? REST client. And I'm just hitting this URL. From here, I'm going to parse that JSON. And then I'm going to iterate through all of the book items. And I'm going to make a new book with the author, the title, and the description. And then I'm going to save into my database. So when fetch books runs, I should have multiple books in my database with an author, title, and a snippet, right? If you're looking for what sanitizer does, all it does is sometimes the results have a lot of weird spaces in them, and I just need to get rid of like all the extra spaces. And I want to cap the results at 20 so that, let's just say I'm looking for like Stephen King and he wrote like 100 books. I'm gonna be like, yo, slow down, just the first 20. Cool? Don't worry about like memorizing this code. Just understand what's happening. All I'm doing is I'm seeding my database with books. Are there any questions? Cool, cool. First thing I want to introduce you to is like something called the controller, right? So we have the controller, we have the model, and we have the views. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that here in a little bit. I have something called environment here, which should be somewhat familiar, right? Bundler is just going to require all of the folders and files within app, and I'm going to make my database with SQLite 3. Right? Mod 1. Cool? Great. I have something called config.ru, which just pulls in my environment, so I have access to everything within my environment. And if you remember environment, this is requiring everything. So in my config.ru, I'm also pulling in everything. Does that make sense? I have everything in app. And then I'm going to run something called application controller, which we have not yet looked at, but it's right here. Yeah? We have a gem file, right? So now that we're working on frameworks, yes?
Right, so back to the config.ru.
Yeah?
How come you commented out
I commented out because this is gonna be useful later. And so when I get to this, I will explain it. But very good question. Continue to ask questions like this. Huh? Just in case I forget or something. Good job. So when you start to build more and more complex apps, you're gonna pull in more and more of these gems. Right? So for Sinatra, these are sort of like the basic gems that we'll need. Cool? And then once you do bundle install, you will have all of these gems and all of the gem dependencies for this particular app. If you're having trouble bundle installing inside any of the labs, go ahead and delete the gem file lock and then rebundle. That should reinstall all of these gems based on what you currently have as the version that's running on your local machine. The gem file lock, as you can see, will lock you to specific versions. So if you don't have the version that the gem file lock has, it will throw you an error. Any questions on this so far? Yeah?
Is there no way to alter it instead?
The gem file lock? The gem file lock is pre-built for you with bundler, so doing anything to this will not really necessarily do anything. In the same way that, like schema, if you like mess with the schema file, it doesn't really do anything. It's built when you run the migrations, and it's designed to give you a visual representation of your current database, but here this is a visual representation of all the gems I'm using with their versions.
The only time I've seen something actually work when you mess with it is when we have like merge conflicts and stuff, and going in there and like deleting out the merge conflicts.
Yeah, the gem file lock is not necessarily super important. It's whatever's in the gem file. Because when you bundle install, it's going to rebuild the gem lock file based on the current gems and the environment that you're in. Cool. Did I see another hand? Yes, sir.
So you said the remedy for that was to delete the gem file lock and then
Yeah.
unbundle this all again?
Yeah, just go ahead and do this move, and then just rebundle. If you're still getting errors, just call one of us over, and we'll take a look at how your environment is set up if it's like a deeper rooted problem. But that should fix like 90% of the problems. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Let's get to this README. I should have deleted this, and I'm a dirtbag. Boop boop boop, boop boop boop, boop boop boop. This makes no sense to you right now, right? Cool. So, can everyone see this? Is this cool? Is this clear? Yeah? Awesome. So, how and why do we use the MVC pattern? So, what is the MVC pattern? Okay, you guys started real strong. Started real strong. Okay, model, great. And what is the model? What does this do? What kind of functionality? Sure, it sets up the class. Sets up the components of the application. Not quite, but I like your guess, and I think I know where you're going with that. Not exactly the logic, but there is some logic in the model. So the model, right, if you remember from Mod 1,
I was going to say, isn't the model connected with a database? Like,
yes, that's exactly correct. The model will touch the database, right? So the model interacts with the database. If you remember, right, in Mod 1 you learned about something called ORM, right, the object relational mapper. And that is, in SQL, you had something, right, that looked like this. Select star from some like cool table name, and then like the data that you wanted, right, like data, whatever, right? And then what did it do with those things? It grabbed all the records from this table, and then it made Ruby instances for you. So then now you're dealing with the Ruby objects in active record. Right? So when you do the like model.all, like user.all, squirrel.all, nest.all, it's pulling all of those records from the database of all the squirrels and then making Ruby objects for you. And that's exactly what the model is doing. It just interacts with the database. This gives you the data that you want. Cool? This is going to make more sense as we get through it, but in the beginning of Mod 2, I just have to give you a bunch of definitions. As you start to use it, it will start to make more sense. Right? So do your best to just try to explain it now, but hopefully it will click for you. But really the goal is that if you can try to explain code, it will test whether or not you actually like fully understand. And that's really what we're here for, right? Just like that understanding of the code. So what is V in this MVC? Views, cool. And what is views? Or the view? I'm sorry, Sam, I didn't know.
The client side ends up getting to see the information and like HTML.
Okay, yeah, I would accept that as an answer. Does anyone else have like a guess at what view is? So the important thing here is that if you were to have an assumption, if your assumption is correct, it solidifies the understanding. If your assumption is incorrect, then you know what to sort of adjust inside your mind about your understanding of something. It is better to assume something and then get it right and assume something and get it wrong than to not have any assumption at all, because it doesn't help with your learning. So does anyone else want to take a wild guess at Vue? Sure, right? Like front-end stuff user interacts with. Yeah, so this right here is what I would describe as, sure, we'll go with that, like front-end, right? This is like the HTML, as someone else mentioned, right? This is what the user will see. Cool? Yeah, right? We're going to send back like HTML, right? That's what this view is. So the view right here in this particular example is going to be this. You have your HTML head, you have some body, you have all these divs, right? And you have data inside, right? This right here, who enjoys looking at websites and being like, okay, great, I've got some nav bar here and I see some title. I'm just going to go through, and they understand and they know what they're looking at, like in the HTML here. Or would they much rather see something like this, like the actual like website? Right, thank you. Thank you. I thought I was dealing with a bunch of robots. You were like, nah, definitely the HTML. I was like, whoa, oh, tough class. Right, so really what you're doing is like, what will the user see? You're gonna send back the HTML, cool? And then like Chrome, Firefox, Netscape Navigator, Internet Explorer, that's what will take the HTML and then actually give you that visual representation of it. So what about C? What is this? Controller, and what is the controller? Sure, I'll just tell you.
So I would say it uses logic to connect the model and the view.
Right, it uses some logic to kind of go between the model and the view. So this right here, the only real thing you need to understand is like it's the go-between between the model and the view, right? The controller will interact with the model, which talks to the database, and then it will render some sort of response, right? So how does Sinatra serve up data in response to web requests? Does anyone like want to take a stab at this? Sure, again, no problem. So what it does is it will get a request, right? So it receives a request. I spelled this wrong because I don't know how to do English. Right? It receives a request, right? Then it processes the request, and then it will send back a response, whatever that response is. Cool? And we're going to see this happen a lot today. What is RESTful routing? Have you heard of this? No? Does anyone know like what it stands for? They've never heard of REST. Cool. I'll just tell you. So what it is, it's a RE, right? Representational state transfer. Cool. So we have RE from representational, S from state, and T for transfer, right? Which obviously is like the best way to do like acronyms, right? Just like take the first two letters of something. Help me, help me. I'm dying. All right. It'll get more fun as we start interacting. I get that this is like the dry part. Cool? So let's start interacting then, right? Let's just say I'm building this app, right? And I've got all these Google books on here. Before we even do that, right? I know some of you like this website, ESPN. Cool? Who has heard of ESPN? Okay, for those who have not heard of ESPN, it's just like some sports website. Cool? That's all you really need to know. Yeah? So I'm going to try to explain in the best way that I can what REST kind of really is. All right? I'll just give you like a very vague general definition of it, and then hopefully it'll make more sense as you see examples of it. REST is a convention that we have all agreed upon as developers, if we're using the REST convention, of how your data can be found. Right? So for example, right? Let's just take, for example, ESPN.com. If I wanted to see, I don't know, the NBA, right? How do you think this route, this URL, this path, this resource will change? Something like /MBA? Would that make sense to you? I'm going to go to /MBA to see the subsection of MBA within ESPN. Cool. Let's find out if that's true. Cool. And there it is, MBA, right? What if I wanted to see the scores or the schedule or the teams? How do you think this route might change?
/scores.
Like /scores maybe? So if I go here, let's take a look. Okay. Wait till it loads. Come on, internet. Okay, /scoreboard. We're close, right? But that's like the idea that my route needs to make sense about what it is that I'm displaying on my website. Cool? So right now, the state of my website is all the scores within the NBA. Right? If I were to take a look at players instead, I would see ESPN.com/NBA/players. And there it is. And the state of my website right now is all the NBA players. Does that make sense? So this RESTful routing is sort of like this idea that if I have a resource, I'm going to name it the same way, something that makes sense, so that if somebody else is trying to get the data from my website, they know what the URL is. Does that make sense? Like if I have a bunch of, I don't know, like sports in ESPN, to go to NFL, it'd be ESPN/NFL or /MBA/MLB. And that's going to give me all of either the MLB data, NBA data, or NFL data. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So that's basically what REST is. It's a convention that the idea is that these resources make sense with what information I'm displaying, the state of my website. So for each deliverable, what do you think the route would be? If I was in this website, right, like Evans Wang's website, right, evanswang.com. Please don't go there. It is a real website. I just shot myself in the foot. Well, I mean, there's not a lot of Evans Wangs out there. And if you go, you'll see. You'll see. Please don't go, all right? You're in lecture. Anyways, so if I were to go, right, to some sort of website, right, like www.awesemo.com / what would make sense to see, right? Oh, by the way, for some reason, this like Awesemo website is like some sort of library. I have just a bunch of books in here. If I wanted to see all of the books inside this website, what would the route be that would make sense to you? Books, right? Just /books. So if I wanted to view all the books, I would go to the route or the path, the resource called /books. Does that make sense so far? Great. Now, it's great that I could see this, right? Let's just say you're on Instagram, right? And you have, when you first load it up, you have all these pictures, right? You have like a 3x3 grid of like just pictures or something like that. You have like all the pictures in this sort of like index view of all these photos, right? If I were to touch one of those photos, I get all the details of that one photo, right? So if I were to create some sort of route, right? Like www.insta, there's an extra W in there, Insta, I don't want to get sued here, .com, / what would I think about if I'm trying to get one particular photo? How would I do this?
Something that's
Go for it. Just
something that's unique to the photo.
something that's unique to the photo, right? So first I would want to look under all the photos, right? And then I would need some sort of subset of all the photos. And the thing that's most unique to each individual item within my Instagram database, you've seen this already, in your active record, is the ID, right? So I'd want something like ID in here, right? And that way I can just interpolate the ID in here And so if I were to be like photos 1, I'd get the first photo, right? Photo 99, I'd get the 99th photo in my database. Does that make sense? So in this like horrible books example, right? Like Osmo, how would I get the individual book? Following this exact same pattern. Book/ID, right? So far so good? Nothing crazy. Now we're gonna get a little tricky, right? I'm in this same website, right? So here is just, again, /books/ID. And now I'm in a new book, right? I wanna make a new book. How would I do this? How would I do this? What is the route that I should go to create this new book? What would it be? Well, /books, probably like /and-u. Would that make sense to you? Would that be like easy to kind of figure out this sort of resource, sort of this path? Cool. What would /books/new sort of give me if I was on a website, right? Let's just say you're on Bookface, right? Facebook, whatever. I call it Bookface. You're on Facebook. And you need to create a new account because you live in 2004 and you do not have a Facebook account. What is the first thing you will see when you're trying to make a new account? The sign-up page, right? You need some sort of form to take the user input for the book, right? And then after you put in your details like, hey, it's Chef, it's your boy RD, right? My email is like wangtron@gmail.com, and my phone number is like 8675309. And then I click some, thank you, like one person who is like getting us, or two, three, thank you. 4, cool, anyone else? I'm not as young as I look. Jenny, attaboy, right? It's an old song.
That's the password to like my apartment too. I have like 40 rated. Everyone knows it.
Okay. Maybe the bathroom password's like cool to share, you know, because everyone needs a bathroom. But nothing. No, don't worry about it. Just glaze right over it. When I actually sign up, right? What happens? I hit the sign up button, and then what? You press submit, right? And then submit is going to do what?
Create a new record.
It's just going to create a new record in the database, right? So I have a new here, right, which is just essentially like this form. And then I have this like create action where it's going to actually make the record in my database. Cool? I'll just scroll down. Is that a little bit better? But here right now, we have the first time where the user is starting to submit information. If you remember from that like horrible like intro to internet lecture, what are all of these requests right here? If I'm going to /books, what kind of requests are they? Are they get requests, post requests, put patch, or delete requests? Or does that mean anything to you whatsoever? Who says that means nothing to me? Okay? Who has an idea of what kind of request this would be? Sure. What kind of request would it be? Doesn't really matter yet. Get? Are you in the same boat? Get? Going once, twice? Sold? So I would say this is like a get, right? Do I need to like go over these again? Does anyone need me to like break them down? Who understands like the get, put, patch, post, delete? Cool. So let's just take a quick look. Ready? MDN, right? MDN is the Mozilla Developer Network, which is like in charge of essentially all the rules of the internet. Here I'm just going to talk about HTTP, which is what we're looking at, the hypertext. Huh? Yes. This website like regulates all the JavaScript documentation as well. Here we'll see something called the request methods, and we'll get a bunch of these, right? The ones I want you to focus on are delete, get, patch, put, post. Actually, just those 5. That's it. I'm going to write them all over here. Right? So we have get, okay, post, put, that's not what I wanted, put, okay, patch, and delete. Actually, I'm going to put these in like one line, actually. Cool. All right, so here we also, say again? Yeah, I'll explain. So here we had something called CRUD, right, which was so graciously explained. So what is the C in CRUD? Right? And what is the R? Cool. And what is this? Very good. And, oh, and the, almost got me. Huh? And delete, right? I was going to say like, and the D, right? Tough crowd. If we were to somehow map these CRUD functionalities to these HTTP verbs, they're called. They're also called methods, right? HTTP verbs or HTTP methods, right? What do you think create, or rather, what do you think read will map to? Right? So we have a little read action, right? Because get, essentially, you're just asking for information and you're just reading it. What about this create? Right? What is post doing? Does anyone have a wild guess?
Sending information.
Yeah. The user is sending information back to the server. All right? And this will make more sense here in a little bit. But I'm just going to tag create with this. What about put and patch? There's only kind of 2 left, and if you like look a little ahead, probably take a while, right? So update, and for those that couldn't figure it out, delete is delete. Cool? I know, that's tough. Actually, I think that's wrong. Oh, it's delete. Nope, yep, it's good. Delete is delete. Right? Surprise of the year. Yes?
So post is also in our email. Is like that, am I not
Put is also in emails?
post? Like when you email on the mailing server, do they use post or do they use something else?
They use post, right? And I'll show you. Cool? So, let's talk this through to see if it will make more sense this second time around, right? If I want to view all the books, am I reading it, creating data, updating, or deleting data? I'm just like reading data, right? I'm getting all the books, right? Same thing with this individual book. I'm just asking for that information. So what HTTP verb should I be using here? What HTTP verb should I be using here? Nice, right? Such a smart class. What about this new? If I'm in the new, remember, the new is just giving you a form to actually sign up with. That's it. What kind of request would this be? What kind of request is it where I'm just receiving information about a form to create a new user? It would be a get. Is anyone confused or tricked or not clear on this? I'm just getting the form to submit the data. Once I actually hit submit though, the user is now sending data back to the server, right? If the user is sending data back to the server, what type of request would this be? A post, right? So the get to books new is just the sign up form. It's just the, I want to make a new book now. When I actually submit the form, I'm making a post request to, what should this be? Probably just books, because I'm lazy like that, all right? I'm just going to post to books. That's it. Because I don't actually have the ID yet, because I haven't actually created the book yet. I'm going to create the book with the user data, but I haven't really made it yet, so I don't have the ID to route it to. I'm just going to go make a new book. So post to books would make the most sense to me, right? I could do post to book/new, but then if I'm making a book, I'm always going to be making a new. So a post, if I'm sending data, if I'm creating this book, would just make sense that I don't actually have to attach this new to it, right? A post to /books would suffice and be enough information to understand what's happening. Cool? All right. What about edit? This one's a bit tricky. It looks just like new, So what would this edit do? What are the two things I need to do with edit? I need the form to get the information from the user, and then I need to, what? Update the book, right? So the first thing is, I need to get the form. What kind of request would getting the form require? Get. There we go. Get to what? If we're following this /books, /books ID, /books new, post books, what is the first thing in here? Books, right? Should I do /edit here? Well, let me think, right? When I do this book, or I'm editing this book, does this book exist? Okay, I need some way to identify what that book is. What is the best way to do that? Great, and what am I doing to this book? I'm editing it, all right? So a get to /books with an ID, with a suffix of edit, would that make sense to you as like what is happening here? So far so good? Cool. Oh wow, thank you. Right? So now, right, I have this form, right? So this is just the form to take in user input, right? And then what do I do at the end of that form? User hits submit, and then what do I do? Which one of these will sort of coincide with this edit functionality? Put or patch, right? So for now, just because I like it, let's use patch. A patch to /books /ID. Do I need any other information? Do I need to put in like /update or something like that? Why would I not need to put /update? Because it can be very easily inferred from this patch, right? Because patch, if you remember, maps to what? This update functionality. So if you see patch, you automatically can very safely assume that I'm updating some sort of record in the database. So does it make sense to do a patch to /books ID with update? No, I can just patch right to that book ID. Cool. And then lastly, if I want to delete an existing book, what HTTP verb or method should I be using? A delete to books /ID, because I need to know which specific book I'm going to delete. Are there any questions as to how I was able to figure out all of these routes, all of these resources here? Okay, absolutely. Very fair question, right? So, you understand that you have rows in your database, right? Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, and it's like different columns. You have like ID, you have like name, you have like all these attributes to them, right? If I wanted to update something, there's two ways to like actually update this row in the database. I can change, right, like my name field. Instead of Evans, I can put your boy. And I'm only sort of updating one column within this row, right? So let's just try to like build this out here. Already have like ID, right? Then I have like name, and then I have like coolness factor, right? Which is like an integer for some reason. 1, and the name is Gia Boy, right? I don't know. I grew up in the 90s. Leave me alone. And the coolness factor of like 10. Welcome to downtown Coolsville, right? If I wanted to update something, I can always just update one part of it and put Evans, right? I became real corporate, still coolness of 10. Cool? Or I could take the whole thing, right? And I could say I want to update this thing. The ID is still 1. I want to put in a name of edog, right? And the coolness is going to be 9. I can update the whole row. I can send in all the parameters for every single thing within this record. Does that make sense? So there's two ways, ready? The first one is I can send in, I want to update ID, I want to update row 1 and just the name. Or I want to update row 1, and here's everything I want to update for it. I'm going to replace the entire row in my database with new data. Cool? So if I'm replacing, I'm putting all new fields, right? I'm replacing all of these, all new fields in this update. I'm going to be doing a put request. If, however, right, I made a boo-boo, and I want to make a little patchy patch, I want to fix this little mistake I made, and I just want to update this to -1, right? I'm making a patch request. You know, times got tough. I became a teacher. My class just hates me and doesn't want to respond, and it's all downhill from there. Right? So remember, put is I'm basically putting in all new data. I'm replacing the whole row. Patch would be I'm just patching it and I'm fixing one little thing. One little thing. Is that what like the cool kids are doing? Like all the cool rappers? I don't know. You got like Lil Pump and Lil Yeezy and yeah, obviously. I'm not with it. Is this right? I don't know. Either way, that's like a patch request, right? Does everyone kind of understand the difference between put and patch now? Now, let me ask you an interesting question. If I were to use like a default for update, would it make more sense, and how often would you use put or how often would you use patch? Just start thinking about like all the things that you've done in your life. Oh man, I'm gonna just update my password real quick on Yahoo, because you know we all use Yahoo, the most popular search engine on the planet, right? And I have Yahoo Mail, and I want to update my password. Do I want to also submit a new name, a new phone number, and a new backup email address when I update my password? No. Do I want to replace the whole row in that database, or do I want to maybe just patch it? So when it comes to update, if you were to pick one, which one would be your default, your go-to? Patch, right? So when I start using update, I'm going to default to patch because, you know, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Cool? Yes, sir.
Is it possible to throw in multiple arguments that you can changing while you're patching?
Big time, yeah. You can throw in multiple arguments when you're patching. It's just that put will always do the whole record. Patches, you can put as many updates in that one record as you want. Cool? Patch is definitely the move. TM, it's the way to go. All right, I could see this like Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving, lunchtime hangover is happening. So why don't we take, like a 5-10 minute break, go get some tea, coffee, water, go to the bathroom, and then we'll like actually write some code. Cool? So just to recap super quickly, right? We talked about CRUD, and we talked about what these HTTP verbs or methods are and how they map to CRUD, right? So there are 5 verbs, but that's because update has 2, put and patch, and it maps to update. Cool? We talked about RESTful routing and kind of what it looks like. We solved our own by figuring out what all these books are, right? This is known as the index. If I'm looking at all of something, I'm looking at the index of it. If I'm looking at a particular item, right, like a book, I want to see all the details of this one book. I want to be shown all of the likes, comments, and details of a particular Instagram photo. This is called the show, right? When I'm making a new object, right, I first need to render the form, and then I'm going to take the form data and create a new object with it. This will make more sense when we actually do it here in the next few minutes. Same with edit. I will need to render a form for edit, and then ultimately, I will have to actually update the record in the database, and then naturally, the last thing for the complete CRUD functionality, I'll have to be able to delete something. So CRUD, there are 4 things you can do with data. There are 5 main HTTP verbs, and in terms of RESTful routing, there are 7 RESTful routes. You have the index, you have show, you have this new form, you have this create with that form's data, you have edit, which I should just follow this, right? Edit, right? The edit form, and then ultimately updating with that edit form data, and then you can delete. Delete or destroy, right? We're gonna get into like the little nuances of that. All right, so 7 right here, ready? So index 1, show is 2, new is 3, create is 4, edit is 5, update 6, delete is 7. They're not in any particular order, but there's just 7 there. Cool. So 4, 5, and 7. Are there any questions on that? Did that make sense? Awesome. Let's write some code, right? Good deal. So all I did, right, was I seeded the database already. If we look in DB, we're gonna have a migration file, and all that is doing is, all that's doing is I'm making a books table, and I have 3 attributes of books: author, title, snippet. I migrated so my schema reflects properly. Then I seeded the database with that Google Books adapter, and now I have 20 books in my database based on what Google Books fetched me, right? How can we test that? How can we look? Rails console. Yep, I can check the rake console, so let me go do that. I can, in fact, go inside. If I check print working document, right, or working directory, I can see that I'm inside the proper folder, and I can always do rake console, and that will give me very much exactly the same what it gave you in mod 1. And I can always do book.first, and I will see the details of my first book, right? ID 21, this author, this title, and this snippet. Cool? I can do book.all and see all of my books, right? It's a lot of books. Cool? Some don't apparently. Oh God, I made this for my last class. It's a student named Jordan. Apparently he's the best. Cool? And there's no author. Huh? Oh, it's your boy, yeah. Obviously I made this. This last one didn't come from Google, right? This book would not sell. Or maybe it would, I don't know. Cool? Any questions on this? Rake console, testing my database. Awesome. So first thing I want to talk about is in the MVC framework, we have controllers, we have models, and we have views. After I do this migration, all right, I have the model, and it's going to look exactly as you probably remembered it. Just class book and inherits from active record base. Are there any questions on this? All right, and then eventually, at some point, if I have like a lot of authors, all right, authors write books and books belong to author, I would do like belongs to right here, belongs to author, if I had something like that. Cool? If I extracted that relationship. Then I would have to create a migration for author, migrate and seed my database.
Yes.
Thank you, great, awesome. So we don't have that, right? Now let's talk about this controller here, right? So I put some to-dos in here just to kind of get us started. So inside the controller, remember, we talked about the controller being the go-between between the model and the view. That's how I described it to you, right? If I want to, right, do something like set a home page, right? What is the home page for your website? Right? If you were to go to like awesome.com, what would be the home page? What would be the route that follows, right? If I would go to ESPN, what does the home page look like in terms of like the route right here? Is there anything past ESPN.com? No, it's just slash and then basically like nothing here, right? So if I were to say the home page, right, the root, it would make sense if I called it just this slash, right? Because nothing follows, slash blank, slash nothing. So let's do that. If I were to go back to my code and I were to do what kind of request? Should I do a post to slash or a get to slash? And what I want that to do, right, just so we don't forget, I'm going to end the do block. What I want that to do is just tell me home sweet home. Home. Very good. Cool. All right. All right. I'll spice things up. If you hold Command Option Spacebar, it brings up. Oh, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm sorry. Command Control Spacebar. You could put emojis in here. All right. So let's put this cookie. Shh. Exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah. Now. Okay. Now you want to pay attention, right? Good golly gosh. Great. Command Control Spacebar will open up the emojis, so you can drop emojis right inside your text. Great. So if I go to start my server and I put no route in there, I should see something like home sweet home, right? Let's take a look. First, I'm going to start my server. And how do I start it? Shotgun. Cool. That's not going to work. Shotgun. Yeah, very good. It says right here that my port is 9393. So if I were to go to localhost 9393, I should see home sweet home cookies. Cool? Questions on this? Great. Let's just kind of go over what it is that we talked about earlier. And that is, I want to do something called all my books, right? Let's just say for some reason, someone wants to go to my website and just take a look at all my books, right? What did we describe this as? Yes? What did we describe this as? I'll just help you out here. Index. Wow, very good. Yes. And what did we say the route for this would be? Wow, so smart. So if I were to do literally get to /books, right? And what is that going to do? Show all dem books do, right? So easily I can do this. Cool, cool, cool. If you hold Command and backslash or forward slash, I don't know what these are. It's above return, right? Above enter, you hold Command this, it hides the file tree. So we don't really need it right now. I'm just going to hide it. So you can kind of see what's going on. Cool? If I were to go to, I don't know, say /books, what should I see? Yo, dem books though, right? Cool. Questions so far? Not much yet, right? I want to actually show all the books. So what I can do is I can get rid of this, and I can do something like this, right? At books, right? Because remember, this is a class, and classes, when instantiated, have access to instance variables. So this instance variable is going to do what? It's going to talk to the model, right? So the first thing is, actually I'm going to get rid of this, is talk to model, right? Just like we all do at those fancy LA parties in Hollywood, talk to the model, and this book is going to be all my books. How do I get all my books? Geniuses in this class, right? And now I want to, right, send a response to the user, right? And that's going to be the view. So what do I want my user to see? I want them to see some HTML file that has all of my books in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ERB, which is embedded Ruby, right? And all I'm going to do is send them something called index, because we talked about what this all books are, right? Books.all /books is the index file, right? We talked about this, right? Cool. If you want, I'll just shame you into this. Cool? Great. So here, I'm sending this. I need to go into my views, and I need to make this index file. Because right now, what is this though, right? Like, I deleted the code, so let me just refresh here and see what happens. Okay, didn't like that. Cool. Error at @/books. No such file or directory of app views index.erb. This is something I told a couple of you already. In Mod 2, in Sinatra, and in Rails, there's a very specific way to do things. So you can follow what is known as error-driven development, EDD. Right? You learned about TDD from old Mike Chang, the Grandmaster. EDD is just, you're going to write some code, and then you're going to not be afraid of errors because it's going to tell you exactly what to do. So I'm looking for a file called index in my app views folder. Cool. In my app, I have a folder called views. Under app, I have a folder called views. And I'm looking for a file called index. Probably because I told it to do index. I can tell it to do cool page bro. And if I refresh, it's going to be looking for something called coolpagebro.erb. All right? But instead, that's not like professional. That's not like the way we want to do things right now. Instead, I want to render index because that's what all the books are. It's the index. In my views, if you just press A, it opens up like create a new file. So I'm going to call this under app views index.erb. Questions on that? Pretty cool. In here, I'm going to do HTML. In my views will always be HTML, right? So HTML looks like this. If I press H1 and I hit tab, it's going to give me an H1 tag. So one more time, H1 tab gives me H1 tag. If I put P for a paragraph and hit tab, it'll give me a paragraph tag. If I did LI tab, it'll give me an LI tag, right? So it's kind of some built-in functionality. So in my H1, I just want to say, this is the index. Wow, that's like really angry. Let me just, this is the index. Index. Cool. And just for fun, we'll throw this strongman emoji in there. Cool. If I hit refresh, what do you think will happen? Right? This is the index. Weird flex, but okay, right?
Don't you need like
Don't I need what?
I thought you needed like the exclamation mark doc type HTML.
I'll explain that in a little bit, right? Let's take a look at this, right? Cool. This is the index because if we break this down, actually, I'll just break it down here. I've set get books to give me all the books and then render something called index. All right? So naturally, when I go to /books right here, and then I match it right here, it's going to do this for me. That's how ERB index touches the view, and it goes to the index file. So far, so good? And your question one more time?
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like, I guess like the way I understood it, every time you have an HTML file or something that really you need to like have that whole thing where it starts off with doc type
Okay.
HTML and then you have like all the
Yeah. What you're looking for and what you're talking about is like the basic HTML, right? So if I were to open my Chrome developer tools in my elements, I should see HTML, head, which is completely empty, body with literally just this H1 tag. So what is happening in this framework is that Sinatra and the browser gets sent back this H1 tag, and then Chrome, Google Chrome, will literally automatically assume, oh, it's HTML, and will build out this basic HTML for me, and it'll wrap it inside a body. I can, in fact, do something like this. I can put, I don't know, doc type, hit tab, and it'll build out this HTML tab. It'll build out this basic HTML template for me, and then right in here, I can paste this in. But Chrome is smart enough to know that it's going to build it for me. I can literally just leave this H1 tag in there. As we get more advanced, I will show you tomorrow something called layouts, and it'll be embedded in there, but don't worry about it. Chrome is just building out this HTML tag, empty head tag, a body, and it's just throwing whatever I write in there, right? If I want, I can put p tag, I can be like, and I can just start thinking, this thinking emoji, right? And if I refresh, it will be right there in this p tag. Yeah.
At this point, if you were to comment about line 14 in the application controller, the page should change, correct?
That is correct. Line 14 right now, as you know it, is doing absolutely nothing. So let's fix that, right? Remember, index is supposed to be all of my books. So remember, this right here is just a really fancy method. It's going to take an argument of the route, and then it's going to do something, right? All of these things are just methods. So ERB is just going to take an argument of index, and it's going to run this sort of function on it. Cool? Let me do this. Cool? This is just a method. Just because it's separated by a space doesn't make it not a method, right? This is just the argument inside ERB. Yeah, Ruby syntactical sugar. Cool? So, that being said, inside ERB, does @books exist? In this scope of this method, does something called @books exist? Right, it does exist, right? So inside this is really inside of this index.erb file. So do I have access to @books here? Who says yes? Who says no? Okay, cool. Nobody voted except for like 2 people. Thank you, thank you. So this is Ruby, right? @books is Ruby, but I am in an HTML file. So I must embed Ruby within my HTML. And the way to do that, Yes, right. So if we look, we have something called .erb. What I can do is I can do these, and they're called a bunch of things, right? They're called like carrots. I call them ice cream cones because they're awesome, right? What? Not a big fan, but sure, right? Whatever you want to call these things. This allows me to write Ruby inside of HTML. I am literally going to embed this Ruby inside this HTML, and you can see the highlighting happening, right? So what is @books? What is books.all?
Array of all the books.
It's an array-like object. Technically, it's an active record collection, but it acts like an array, right? So that being said, it'll probably respond to something like this: @each, right? A little bit of this, a little do action, a little book action, right? And then I can do this, end. Cool?
Wait, sorry, what did he say? Is it not an array, or I didn't understand the last bit?
It is not an array. It is an array-like object, but it will respond to certain array methods. And so here's how we can test that. We can do this. We can go break console. We can test book.all. I could see all of my books. I can do book.all.class. And you are saying I should expect to see array. It's an active record collection. Cool?
Yes.
Are there any questions on this? So it's an array-like object, but it will respond to a majority of the array methods. Sweet? Good deal. Let's get back to that server. A little shotgun action. Cool. So here, it's just responding to it, right? I can do just book. What is this exactly? What is book right here? Is the book object. But what I really want is the title. So if I were to save this, what do you think will happen? Well, let me ask you this, right? This has like fancy highlighting. This has fancy highlighting. I probably also want to wrap these inside because every single line here is Ruby. Yeah? Yes, absolutely. So here we have these ice cream cones, right? Do I want books.each, do book, to display on my website? Do I want this exact line of code to show up on my website? Do I want this end to show up on this website? Do I want the title of the book to show up on the website? If I want it to actually display, I drop this equal sign. So no display, yes display. No, yes, no, yes. Yes again? Haha, fooled you. Cool? Okay, cool. Because I've gotten through like day 3, and then somebody was like, what's the difference between the equal and not equal? And I was like, I'll just drill it in next time.
Does the equal sign only have to go on the left side?
Yeah, the equal sign only goes on the left side. It does not go here. That's a very good question. Yeah? Cool? Probably. So let's take a look. What do you think will actually display on this website now? Cool, let's just find out, right? Quick refresh action, and all of a sudden I see a lot of things, right? These are all the titles of all the books. Notice how only this part is the embedded Ruby. I can just easily throw in HTML anywhere I want, throw a quick line break, and if I refresh, then now should look like this. Ooh. Yes, sir.
Should you actually just put the equal sign on that bookstore in the end bookstore?
Absolutely, I can do that for you. Let's do that. Let me drop a quick equals real quick, and let's refresh. Let's see. Syntax error, right? From the books.each, keyword ensure, expecting this closing bracket, unexpected keyword end. So let me explain what's happening. It's thinking that this line of code is going to display on the website, and HTML has no idea how to display at books.each as a Ruby sort of iterator. If I were to ask you, just in what you understand now, how would you display a Ruby iteration in HTML? The fact that you're like, I don't know, because it don't make no sense, right? Which is why it breaks. So if I were to not display this, right, it will actually, in fact, understand that, hey, I'm going to run this Ruby. I'm not going to display it because I don't know how to display it. And then I'm going to put this line in, right? Even if you look here, look what happens. In this p tag, right, I have this And then I have this empty string here and then a break, which is kind of weird because it understands empty strings because that's exactly what these are. But what I really want is probably like a okay, all right. It's like a paragraph tag. And now I can see inside I have these p tags wrapping all of my things, followed by a line break. Paragraph tags, however, do their own spacing, so I can get rid of the line break, and now I have all of these objects. Right? Does that make sense so far? Cool. So notice how I'm just embedding this in here, right? How many book objects do I have? I think there was like 20, 21, right? Because I made the adapter give me 20 and then I made one. So if I wanted to, I can just put some sort of string in here and be like, cool, man. Right? And what do you think will display? Cool, man, cool, like 21 times. Because I'm just hard coding it. Right? Remember, this .each is going through the full length of the array-like object, which is 20 of them. And for each of them, I'm doing this. but instead I actually want the book. Any questions on how I was able to get this instance variable from the controller into the view? Correct. Yeah, yeah. So like if I were to take this away, what happens? Notice nothing shows up, but here I have 20 p tags, right? Because it's just not displaying. But it is in fact making a p tag 21 times, like I told it to do. And it does what it's told. And it puts the lotion on the skin. You know what I'm saying? Okay, great. Good to know you're still awake, right? I get ridiculous because I get like no response and I have to go fishing for it. What?
Where's the functionality for the app books? Where is that coming from? Is it like Gem?
Okay, so here's the thing. Ready? Here's the thing. So check it out. In the config.ru, it says run application controller, right? We saw this? Application controller, then the Sinatra framework will do all this. Do not memorize what I'm about to tell you. Just understand what's happening under the hood. Application controller, an instance of it is created whenever someone goes to slash or slash books. An instance is created of application controller. So when I run get to slash books by going in the URL, at books, I'm creating an instance variable. And I'm assigning it to book.all. So now inside ERB of index, it has access to it. So all I'm doing is iterating through at books here inside of index.erb, because that's exactly what's being passed in here. I'm going through each, and I'm just passing in the book title. So the controller is the go-between, right? When I get to slash books, I talk to the model, right? The controller talks to the model. The model gets the information from the database, right, in the book.all. It gives it back to the controller as an instance variable, and then the controller will send this response back to the user in the view, and it'll say, here you go. Here's the index that you were looking for. The index comes back as this large HTML, and now I have my website. Yes, sir?
So you need that add box within that method, right? You need that for the embedded review within the HTML file to work.
So what if I call
Just no response, nothing? Okay. But yes, you need the instance variable in order to pass it in.
You can't just do like book.all.each within the HTML file.
Okay. You mean like what I literally just did? Let's try again.
no, he means
Yeah, so like, no, not doing that. It's like if you like.
Oh, you're talking about this book.all right here.
Yeah, and then you were to like hypothetically.
I see. 100% you can. I can in fact do this.
Oh, right. You got a.
Hmm? Yeah, you're good. I can do this, right? So what I've been telling you and what I've been teaching you is that what file is this if I were to describe it in the MVC architecture? This is the view, right? This is what the user is actually getting. This is what the user sees, right? And the controller is the go-between. Everything should be going through the controller, except what is this? Is this the controller or is this the model? Right. So here you're having the model talk directly to the view. That's what's happening here. Does everyone understand this? Right? Let me ask you this. Do you want, in your website, in your application, the user to ever touch your database? Never. because users are smart and they're very trustworthy and they would never do anything to steal your data. Yeah, you don't want, you can do this, yeah, but you don't ever want this to happen because then through like JavaScript and through other code, you can actually pull and touch the database if the database is directly inside the view. And you don't want that. All right, so it's just really bad security practice. But yes, in fact, this will work. All right? It's much better to control it, understand what's happening here, and then pass it in from the controller. Because the controller, through the Sinatra base framework, will add some security measures right as it does this ERB. The rack middleware and Sinatra will do some security stuff, as will Rails. Rails will do significantly more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. You had something as well?
Yeah. What if I use that instance variable in a different route?
That's a very good question, right? Can I use this instance variable in, say, my next route, right? Let's take a look. That is the index page for books. Boom, done. What if I want to do the individual book? What did I say, or what did we agree upon as the route for this individual page? What is this called again? What do we call this individual book? All the details of it? Nice, right? And what is the route? All right, so we have books / ID. Cool. Okay. And what type of request, what type of HTTP verb should this be? Are there any questions as to why this was a get? Cool. Great. I'm going to add this little semicolon here for funsies, and I'll explain here in a little bit. All right. Who has seen this magical line of code? Wow, nice. Good deal. This is your best friend, right? So what this is saying is if I were to do a get to /book/ID, I hit a binding, this will pause my code. This will hit the actual binding. Does that make sense? Cool. Let me do that. Ready? Man, I think my ID started at like 21. Yeah, they start 21. So if I were to go to 21, what do you think will happen? Or it'll hit this binding, right? Cool. So I can see here that it's hanging, right? It's doing this bad boy over here. So let's take a look. Look at that. Bam. I'm in the binding successfully. All right. What did I pass in here? Why is this ID not changed to 22? Or 21, rather? What did I actually pass in? I passed in an ID, right? How can I see what was passed in? What kind of arguments were passed in? All right? Yeah, so the parameters of this request were passed in, right? So I can check to see what they are by literally looking at the params. This is your friend, right? Params. Always check params. And I see ID is 21. Cool. Let me exit out of this. And now let me change a couple of things. Instead of ID, I can have something. Yeah, right? If I were to go back to books 21, I'm going to hang again. And I can go right back to my code. I notice that it changed. And I can check params again. And I see something, yeah, 21. So what you can infer is whatever I pass in, past this, I think it's like a delimiter. Phrase not important. After this semicolon, it will take on this key inside my params object, inside my params hash. And 21, where could that have possibly come from? Let's just make sure that 21 wasn't hard-coded somehow. Ready? and I can put in something else. Cool. 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 Something, something else, which is very obviously coming from here. Cool? Yes, sir.
I would have thought you would have needed post. I guess get it's just a back and forth.
Yep.
You can just change that. And it's
Yep, that's exactly right. So, in the get response cycle, all right, I'm probably going to do 21 here. Let's change this back to ID, all right, because ID is going to be useful. So, let's take a look. If I were to go to this route, see my ID, check my params, how would I get access to this ID in my params hash, just like a normal hash? Params with the key of ID, right? Should point to 21. I can also do book.find with an ID of 21, and I should get book object 21. Combining those powers, I can do book.find with the params at a key of ID will give me book with the ID of 21. Yes, very good. Did everyone see how that worked? Instead of hard coding the find 21, I have access to params, and I have access to key of ID, which is 21. So wouldn't it be cool if I did something like @book equals to book.find with the params at a key of the ID, right? This ID is matching up to this ID. And now I can, instead of binding here, I can ERB, a little bit of show action, all right, because this is the show. What do I need because I have this here? Do I have a show in my view? Should I make one? Great. Show.erb. And here it's just going to be H1, show me the money, or the book. It's fine. Whatever. Book. Let's just look up book here. Book. This will do. Cool. And in this exact same way, right? In the exact same way I wrote that, inside my show, I have @book. But what does this look like? Is this HTML or Ruby? This is HTML? This @book? It looked like a Ruby, right? So I need to interpolate it. I need to embed it inside those ice cream cones. And here I have .title. I can always add something like title here. And then I can do snippet. Because I don't know who talks like this, but that was like the way it came. .snippet. So far so good? If now I were to go here, there is no more binding. In my application controller, book/ID, it's going to go to ID 21. It's going to find the book with the ID of 21, render this show, which is this, give me this H1 tag. I see this title. @book is coming from @book right here. And I'm stuck in this binding over here. Embarrassing. 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 And there it is. Show me the book with the title, followed by a very ridiculous snippet, right? Is that really readable? Probably not. Let's drop a quick break in there. And there we go, right? Cool. And that's just index and show. Are there any questions on index and show? Right? So what we're going to do is move a little bit faster, since like you could kind of understand and see this pattern here, right? So this is the request. This is the model. Talks to the model, gets the data, and then it sends back a request, which we now understand is the view. So the controller talks to the model, sends back a response, which is going to be the view. Right? What did we say was this new book? I want to make a new book. What do? We need the form first, right? So it's going to be a get to / books. If you forget this slash, it will not run. It's not going to break your code. You're not going to get errors, but it's just not going to work. So it's just like a common gotcha, right? / books / new. So first thing is show me the form. Do. And then what do I need? Do I need to talk to the model here? Do I need something like @book equals to like book.find or book.all? Does this make sense right now? If I'm trying to make a new book, do I need this? Some of you are saying yes, and I say no, right? Because you don't really need all the books. You don't even need a specific book to make a new one. What you really need is, right, the view, and that is ERB, some sort of new form. Notice how new is new, right? And then show is show, and index is index. Might be a cool pattern to follow, cool like convention. So let's do this. In my views, I'm going to do, what is the name of my file? New.erb, right? So here, in my new, remember I'm just doing this, right? I'm gonna have this. It's like make new book, big money, big money, big money, big money. Cool. And how do I get user input from the web? Do I do a gets.chomp? Okay. It was like a mod 1 joke, did not land. All right, I would need some sort of form. And as I've told you before, if I do h1 tab, p tab, I can just do form tab, and it'll build me this form. Class allows you to throw styling in there, but styling's for chumps. I'm not gonna learn that right now. Notice how it automatically defaults to post. Why would the form default to post? If you remember, all right, where do we do this? Post sends data, all right? So we're just gonna post. Let's see this action. Where should I go? What action should I do? Remember, we talked about new being 2 separate routes. It was a get to books new and then a post to /books. Before I do anything else, let me try to pause it right there. Right? In my form, I probably want to input a text. The name will be like, I don't know, title. Do I want a value in here? Okay, I'm not gonna play this game. You guys are like, could tell, right? It's like book title. Please. Cool. And then I can just do input. Nope. And it's just going to be submit. Ugh, just kidding. Cool. So here, if I were to go to books /new, what do you think will happen? It'll probably break because it's looking for this book with the ID of new. If you remember, in the application controller, I have book /ID, right? It's gonna hit this one first, and then do book.find with params ID, and then tell me, hey, there's no book with an ID of new. All right? Couldn't find book with ID of new. This couldn't be a more clear error message. So, how would I get this books to run before book /ID? This is really grimy and really dirty, but yeah. You bet yourself I'd do that, right? Because it's going to run top to bottom. It's going to hit this new before it hits ID. So if, In Sinatra, no, you have to. You have to, any hard-coded routes like this, you want to move up first. Cool? Rails is, you're not going to run into this problem in Rails. Cool? So here's my form. It's going to make the book title, please. All right, and again, in my post to /books, I have this binding pry. If we take a look at the form, great, it says index.html. Okay? Is this where I want to go? A post to index.html, or do I want to go somewhere else? I want to go to /books, right? I want to post to /books. So here in my post, I want to go to /books, and I'm going to pause right here. So here, I should see on refresh, this should change from index to books, and great. So post to /books is where this form will submit to. Book title, please, is just a placeholder, but Volvo is not, man, I have a lot of weird seed data. So if I hit submit, if I'm lucky, I should see it hang. I should see a post to books, and I should see params. My params look like title, Volvo is not a book. That's exactly what I was expecting it to say, right? But where did title come from? Title probably came from here in the name field. So let's double check. If I were to say this is going to be for something cool, because I'm creative like that, and I were to refresh and I go back to /new and I give it a real book for real, I submit, come here, I check my params, and I'm going to see something cool, real book for real. If we were to just examine that, real book for real is coming from the input of the user, which is going to be the value of my params, and the key is coming from what I put inside the name. Cool? So, that being said, let's finish this up properly. Let's actually do title. If you hold Command-Shift-D, it'll make like an exact copy of that line. So what were the other attributes of book? Author, snippet, right? And then these placeholders should probably be what? Author me, and then summarize. Cool. So if I refresh, I now have a book title, like cool, right? Written by me. Summarize, best book ever. Bang, 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 bang. If I were to submit, I'm back in here. I can check my params. Oh no. Sometimes like your Sinatra thing will do this to you, and like your terminal will just bust. Just restart the server. It's bizarre. This problem has been open for a few years now, and Sinatra just refuses to fix it. So the irrational season, me again. Yeah, cool story. Cool story, sis, right? It's 2018. If I check my params, I'm getting a title, irrational season, me, cool story, sis. Can I do book.new or book.create with a title of params with the key of title? Right? And then author, and then all that stuff. I could do that? Okay, do you remember mass assignment and how cool it was? Cool. So book.last will be this last book. So if I were to go to exit out of here, if I were to just very quickly go to /books, I should see all the way at the bottom the irrational season. So let's actually write that code, right? Book.create with params that are coming from this book form. Then What do I want to do after I create this book? Let's see what happens if I tell it nothing. Let's just see what happens. If I were to go to books/new, let's watch the terminal here on the left side, and I were to go, I don't know, book or something. Haha, fooled you, right? Amazing 90s R&B, sure. If I were to hit submit, take a look. It does exactly what I told it to do. It made that new book. And then what did it do? It rendered nothing. It sent no response back to the user. But that's expected behavior because all I told it was to create. I was like, hey, make a new book, and then just do nothing. End. Great, thanks, boss. Got it. So what can I do? I can tell it to go. What would make sense after you make this new book? Probably show the details of the book. All right, so I can redirect to where? Like this thing? Let me show redirect first and I'll explain something, right? Let me see this route right here. I want to go to this particular route. Will this work?
You have to replace the ID.
I should do book equals to, instead of the ID, I can now string interpolate book.id. Because if I just made it, it will have an ID. Oh. I've been waiting for that response all day. New, right? And just terrible seed data because I'm like lazy, right? Boom! After it creates, it will go to that show page. Exactly like I told it to do. That being said, somebody else said, why don't I just ERB show? Well, let's see what happens. I'm going to make a new book. And it's going to be identifiable, ID me, and then some other nonsense. If I were to hit submit, it will break because it has no idea, no title for nil class. Cool?
What was show? Where was show? That was an actual change.
Well,
Yeah.
let's take a look at what show actually is. Ready? It doesn't have access to book. So when I pass in title, right, it's going to do dot title on something that does not exist. I can probably do at book, and then when show comes about, at book is now existing. So let me go books new. So try again, something again. And now this will work. Because now the instance variable is passed to show. To answer your question from earlier, right, at book only exists within the scope of this method. At book only exists within the scope of this method, right? At book here does not equal at book here, and it will not pass over. As demonstrated earlier when I did this, right? It didn't pick up at book from anywhere else. It's only looking inside here. So that means that each one of these requests, whether it be a get or a post, does not know about the previous one. So it is fair to say that somewhat these requests are stateless. They do not know about each other. What happens in the request stays in the request. Cool? It's tough. You guys are tough. You guys are tough. Yeah? Also, if I were to do this, right, technically it would work. But if I already have the show page, it is better to just redirect back to show. It'll put it here, right? If I redirect to /books with the ID, it'll do this new GET request. It'll hit this at book, find it, right? Because remember, this ID is the same as this ID, and then it will render the show. It will get more complicated, so you want to reuse your code as much as possible. All right, we haven't hit edit, we haven't hit update, and we have not hit delete, but it is 5 o'clock. I understand this is a ton of information to take in. Hopefully this wrapped up a lot of the concepts that you learned in the labs. To summarize, we went over, all right, CRUD, HTTP verbs, all the RESTful routes, right? As you can start to see now, this is going to be what edit looks like for the form. I'm going to do a patch inside my form and not a post, which I will teach you more about tomorrow. And then we will get to delete. So we got to the cr of CRUD, and I introduced RESTful routing, and we talked about MVC, right? How the controller talks to the model, gets the data, and sends that response into the view. Are there any questions right now? I can see some of your faces. It's just like, but it's okay. All right, it's a lot. We're going to do this so much that it will seem very repetitive, but it's designed to be that way. All I care about is right now that you understand the concepts of MVC. If someone says RESTful routing, it is not completely lost on you, and you have some semblance of this like index, show, update, delete, new, create like idea, and how it all kind of ties together. That's really the goal. Yes?
We're going to use any of the other I guess like that as well, like options and other stuff that
Yes. Yeah, tomorrow. I don't want to overload everybody. This is like a 2-hour lecture because I had to combine 2 lectures. You guys feeling all right? Thank you. That's all I got for you today.